Welcome to the latest edition of First Day Cop-Ites. It's episode 36 of season 3. It's a podcast for Liverpool supporters in Delaware. I'm sure you know that by now, and friends of those Liverpool supporters. Thanks for listening on your preferred platforms. This week, I'm joined by Sean, Haitham, and Daz, and we're going to reflect on 3 games. Hello, everybody on YouTube. We had an episode the other week that had quite a lot of views, so my this season's top, just by way of celebration. We are going to reflect on a big 6 days between Champions League semi-finals games and then the early kickoff against the not so surging sports washers United from Newcastle, who we thought very nicely put in their place. Some pundits seem to disagree with that assessment, but anyway, let's spend at least our first chunk of time talking about Champions League. We are recording this on May 4th, and so we've just learned that we're going to play Real Madrid in the Champions League final in Paris on May 28th. The semi-final felt very under control for long periods, and then we had a half which wasn't very under control. So we're going to go back to the first game, where I thought that was as controlled a performance as you could possibly expect. And some people, I think, put it down to, like, some guy, Jason Cundy, I don't know if you even know him, who's on TalkSport, described Villarreal as a disgrace.
Did he kick for the Eagles?
I don't know. Badly, because apparently, anyway, he went on some rant about Villarreal being a disgrace and not fit to be in the semi-final. He may have reflected on how good Liverpool were that night. Particularly, I thought Diaz. I think there were great performances all over the field, don't get me wrong, but I thought he was such a threat. I'll go to you then, Sean. Let's talk a little bit about the first game. Were Villarreal a disgrace, or were we just rather good?
No, I think I actually thought Villarreal were, I thought we dominated the game, but I thought they were relatively impressive in terms of just staying really disciplined. They sort of parked the bus, but they did it. I don't know. They did it in a more effective or more, I don't know, respectable way than we often see it. I thought it basically just didn't hurt themselves too much. They sat back. They didn't really try to attack us too much, which I don't know. I don't think you can fault them for that. They're a smaller club. They're in the Champions League semifinal. They're coming to Anfield. Why would most teams aren't going to come out and try to attack you in that situation. So no, I thought the game plan made a lot of sense. I thought they were really effective, and frankly, I thought it took we dominated the match, but we were struggling to create good chances, and we got a bit of fortune with deflected cross that went in. I think we deserved it, but it was still pretty fortunate. And it ended 2-0. I think we could have won it 3 or 4-0, but we missed a couple early chances. I think a lot of times we put away, but no, I think that they, I thought their supporters were great, which we talk about. From all reports, they were, they showed up. They were great. They behaved really well, very respectful. And it's Villarreal is a really small town, apparently. So it's not, it's not like you got a big population base, and they're, I really thought their fans were impressive. I thought they played over the 2 legs. I thought they played pretty well. They played us tougher than basically any other team this year, I think, than City, over the 2 legs. So, I thought the comments afterwards, I don't know why sometimes they have these narratives where, like, they like to get behind the underdog, and then other times they like to trash an underdog. This time it seemed like they were kind of, I don't know, being dismissive of Villarreal. They beat Juventus and Bayern Munich to get there, and it was like nobody wanted to give them the credit that I thought they deserved. So I think we had to play well. We didn't play too well in the first half of the second leg, which get on, but I thought overall we played really well across the 2 legs.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Just want to say a few more things about the first leg. Although you mentioned the like all the narrative about Villarreal. I actually found that I was with a group of people yesterday, and a lot of people found it really irritating that the commentator kept talking about how big the town was. It's like, I think we know this by now. Yes, we know half the population fits into the stadium, blah, blah, blah. And he started going on, if you heard this, he started talking about how it was equivalent to the size of some stadium in Massachusetts.
I've tried. I've
Stadium.
increasingly tried to tune out the commentators. They're just so many bad ones. It's just more annoying to listen to them than anything else. But
Peter Drury has a good reputation, but I thought it was very interesting, and Enrique pointed this out in our chat, that it was interesting how up they were for Villarreal yesterday in their commentary, and how down they sounded when City and started losing today. But I'm going to go to Daz next. So just a couple more things then about Villarreal in the first leg. They had a plan, certainly against Bayern. I didn't see the Juventus game, but apparently it was very similar, where it was kind of a low block, but they sort of play it out. The technique was not to like just try and hit people on the counter, but to play their way out when they get the ball. And it seemed like in the first leg they were really unable to do that against us, which is why they ended up with what was it? One shot, and not
it was like 0.1 XG or something.
Yeah.
But you also have to. There wasn't a lot talked about this, but their best player was missing. They didn't have Gerard Moreno, who's probably their best player, and he was really good in the second leg, at least in the first half, and he was playing injured. So,
you were a habitual tie jumper, just like cross forward and all over the shop here. We're gonna get there, man.
Yeah. Well, I think you just have to give them credit, because it would be like us playing the first leg without Salah or something. It's like, of course they had trouble getting out and attacking. They're missing their best attacker. So
we did play without Salah in the Champions League, and we beat Barcelona. So.
Thank you.
Yes, we did. Yeah. Well, fair enough.
Actually, I was going to chime in and say thanks, Daz, for your insights. Anyway, over to Daz.
What was the question?
It was essentially about the first leg, and that they had a plan, just they weren't allowed to. I think Unai Emery said they weren't allowed to execute the plan that they had. Yeah.
It was that first leg was the most professional home leg in a semifinal. I think I said this to you in the chat, performance that you could possibly put together.
Yeah. And
I'm with Sean, like they showed up, and I think they implemented their game plan perfectly. And I guess we've said this before about what Mike Tyson says: everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
And we kept jabbing, and eventually they crumbled. Like, granted, it was fortuitous the way that we scored the goal, but it wasn't unexpected. I don't think that anyone was watching that game would have said that it wasn't coming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And their goalkeeper's hot shite. Let's just put it that way. He was like, mate, it's right there. Hold on to it. Bring it into your chest. Give your guys a second to calm the tits. And I just punching it right back into trouble. Like, think about the number of times that we recycle possession from something that was a fairly routine ball for him, and he's like, "No, I'm just going to smash this." And it's, I don't know. It's almost like watching a kid with ADHD and without his Ritalin, just like trying to punch a football.
Daz, I mean, you'd comment, like, be able to comment better on this, but I heard someone talk about, for the first goal we scored in the first leg too, that his positioning was terrible.
Yep.
Like he never should have been beaten on that back post, but he wasn't positioned correctly.
Well, I'm going to pull a Sean O'Neill here and fast forward to the second leg. Like, both of the first and the second goal, he should have done much better with. And like, what, he got Meg twice?
Yeah.
At least twice, right? What was that?
The third one, he's trying to tackle Mane at the center circle of the halfway line.
That was worse than a Meg. Yeah.
Look, for me, if you're gonna do that, there's like this big blaze of glory right in front of you. Like, just clean him out. Like,
take him out. Exactly. Take him out.
Yeah.
I don't
anyway. Just welly him. Like, you've gone that far. Just boot him. And because Foyth tried to bring him down,
He did.
and he twinkle toes his way out of it. But yeah, their goalkeeper didn't do them any favors. I'm not going to say he was their weakest link, but you could see that the players are nervous around him. Look, everything about Villarreal was class, and I think the term that I saw the most bandied around on the social media was sound. Like everything about them was sound. Like they waited until after the match. And I think Gareth Roberts they had this response thing at 2:00 in the morning from the hotel with him and Heaton. Yeah. And they were talking about like, they waited around, not with knives and angry glares, but like high fives and handshakes, wishing all the Liverpool supporters the best in the final. Like, it's stuff like that just makes my heart swell, because it's not that difficult to get rid of the jingoistic and tribalistic nature of away days, and just like, well done, mate. Like, I know sometimes our passions get the best of us, but like they just went out of their way. Like even at their away leg at Anfield, like from everything that you read, they were just completely sound. They had the 97 banners up, like just incredible. Mm-hmm. I know that's kind of tangential to Paul's larger question, but yeah, I think that they, and Emery was right. Like I was watching that game and I was like, wow, we are in complete control of this. Never once did I think that they were going to threaten us. Mm-hmm. And to your point, Paul, like they implemented almost exactly the same tactics to great effect against two other European giants. Yeah. And they just came to Anfield and they caught us with our tails well up, and they've been home with a 2-goal deficit. Yeah.
Somehow you got it back to the first leg. Well done. Don't think Luis Diaz got enough praise, but let's move on, because I'm sure he's going to get mentioned in the second.
I know the question. He's my favorite player of all times because I like hyperbole.
we got to mention the bicycle assist. That was unreal. And if he had connected it a little differently and scored, that would have been even
totally
better.
Totally planned it. That's definitely that was
up in his head. That was incredible.
So sure, we covered that on the last episode. Just saying the bicycle assist. Yeah. That was against Everton, right?
Oh, I guess it was. Yeah, I'll get my games.
Yeah. I know. Well, right.
No, the second one was the yeah. You're right.
Haitham, I need you to restore some order here.
Best of luck.
Let's talk about second leg. So people talk about a game of two halves, but I actually think this was a tie of 4 quarters, and one of those quarters was really uncomfortable. I did watch it back a little bit today, and I thought we were extremely tentative. But actually, I think in hindsight, I feel like we over-imagined how much threat they actually were. There were like a couple of moments. You actually look at the XG, and I think apart from the goal, he scored the first goal. Was that by that guy's name, Dia? His first Champions League goal. It was about his only kick in the game, which was worth 0.65. The rest of the XG might have added up to another 0.4 in the whole game. What do you make of let's start with the first half. What do you make of it? Was it their better tactics? Were we complacent? Was it the pitch looking like a rice field? What do you make of it?
I think it was all of the above. Mm-hmm. It was kind of weird to see the pitch initially. I'm just like, what's going on here? And I don't know if it rained. I don't know if
it was like a monsoon. They said apparently like you get like 5 days of rain a year, and this is the most rain they've had in the last 60 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still think La Liga had something to do with it.
Well, the grass was long. Someone said the grass was long.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you mentioned all of it, Paul. Obviously, with the pitch in that condition, it was kind of hard to, do the stuff that we typically do, from controlling the ball. And then, I don't, yes, they came out and just went into a different gear than the first leg. I think you guys all mentioned it in the chat. They were just on it, and we were, I don't know what it was. It just took me back to, I think, the first 15-20 minutes of the City games at Al Ittihad, and it just felt that way. Mm-hmm. And then, they scored early. And I was still, when they scored, I was not, I was like, okay, that's fine. We're still 2-1 up. And as the half continued and we were not able to do anything, Thiago was not playing well. Keita was, kept, I think he gave the ball away like a couple of times.
You put someone through on goal.
Keita
Yeah,
did.
absolutely.
Players.
Yeah. And I mean, no one was gelling. I think I listened to the press conference after the match, and Klopp was saying, I'm sure you guys have heard it, but he was saying that he asked one of his assistant, I think it's Peter. Yeah.
Kravitz.
He asked, Kravitz. He asked him, because typically he shows that if we're not doing well in the first half, he tries to find something to show the players. Hey, if you guys just do what you just did in this video, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And Peter Kravitz going back to him, there's like, there's nothing to show. And that's exactly what I saw with my own eyes. It was a difficult watch. Like I said, it just reminded me of that first half against City.
So how did you feel at halftime?
Halftime, I felt, I mean, obviously while the match was on, the first half, I was kind of concerned, but then I think I just had to remind myself, hey, it's still 2-2. And based on what I know about this team and the coach, they typically get shit right in the second half. Mm-hmm. So I was like, worst case scenario here, it's going to go to penalties.
Yeah,
that was my worst case scenario. I did not see Villarreal. I didn't see what happened in the first half continuing in the second half. We were definitely going to play better.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a tough watch. Very nervy times, from every now and then during the first half, but it was all just, like I said earlier, combination of Villarreal playing well, putting their foot on the gas. Just we could not even press well. Forget about passing, all of that stuff.
Yeah. I think one of the things that Sean Rogers often uses an expression, which is, what's your plan for when the worst thing happens? And at halftime, it felt to me like, well, I mean, I guess there could have been worse things happen. Like Alisson could have got sent off, but it did feel at that point that that's the worst thing that could happen. So, like, what's our plan now? I read somewhere else that one of the things that might have thrown Liverpool off was they used man-to-man marking, which they apparently never done since Emery's been their coach. So they went with this completely different plan, which may have messed them up in the second half because they're probably all knackered by the time it came to coming out for the second half. But there were definitely some different things they'd employed, which put us off. I'll go to you next, Sean. One of the things that Klopp did talk about was, he said, particularly the fullbacks. He said several things about the team. One of them was the fullbacks were too high too early. What did you make of that first half?
I mean, on first watch, I couldn't figure out what was going on. It just seemed like a mess. We were totally thrown off. I thought, I think that was the worst I've ever seen Robbo play for us, like, ever. I mean, he was just totally off, all around. I don't know if he was tired, if it was the wet pitch or whatever, but I think, like, giving up that early goal was very uncharacteristic of him, and I think it really threw everybody off a little bit.
Yeah.
After the fact, and I read Simon Brundish had a tweet where he was saying, I think he said Mane had 21 touches in the first half and turned it over with 16 of them. I couldn't find any stats to back that up, but that's what.
Yeah. But
I have read and seen other people saying that, and I did the same thing at halftime. I was thinking, like, take Jota and Nabi off and bring on Hendo and Diaz. Yeah. But what I guess other people who know more about football than me were saying is like, the real fundamental problem was that we kept turning the ball over when it was going into our front three.
Yeah.
And that was really throwing us off. And so I thought they just made that one change and moved Mane central. And I thought second half, I thought we were as good in the second half as we were bad in the first half. And I thought Mane or Nabi were arguably our two best players in the second half, and they were both not good in the first half.
Yeah.
So that's why they pay Klopp the big bucks. But we got it right and settled in. I do think that part of it was also that Villarreal came out just guns blazing. They were pressing the hell out of us, and we couldn't get the ball right over the top. We weren't able to settle in the front three, and we just weren't controlling the game, and we started playing long balls. And second half, it seemed like from the very beginning when they came out, they just didn't have quite as much. And between the wet pitch and them just kind of going all out in the first half, they probably wore themselves out. And then we just kind of settled in, took control, and that was that. But it was a little nervy at halftime. But I think I said in our chat, normally, I would get very worried. I'm just not with this team right now. I'm just, it's there's just nobody better than us right now. I mean, yeah, it's hard to not have confidence in this team.
So I know you already had one shot at talking about the second, at least the goalkeeping in the second half. So I'm gonna go to Daz. It really did feel that. So I think there's a lot been written and spoken about. Oh yeah, well they just got back to being them, but I don't think we could underestimate the playing away in a hostile environment. They've probably not played the best half, the worst half, maybe the worst half of since crowds came back, and they come out for the second half and they snap back into very familiar territory. I think that's really easy to underestimate how hard that is. I think we saw from today's game, for example, once City conceded the first goal, they looked all over the show. Looked like they were deer in the headlights or whatever cliche you want to use. So I do think there was some really good things going on there. So I talk about whatever you want, but I'm really thinking about the second half and what were some of the other things that we did, because there's a piece, actually, let's go there, a piece by Michael Cox in The Athletic today, where he said the biggest change was Fabinho's positioning in the second half. That he took up much more advanced positions and was kind of playing these 1-2s around the edge of the box, and whether they'd fallen off with the man-to-man marking or whether they're like, what is this midfielder doing in our 18-yard box? That was a big disruptor for them. It wasn't just a goal he scored; it was happening on multiple occasions.
I think we underestimate how much of our metronome the lighthouse is.
Mm-hmm.
I harken back to the fixture that we played at Real's training ground when we didn't have crowds, and we ended up it was an embarrassing performance. But I remember specifically watching Fabinho looking like a training cone. It was just, he was so easily bypassed. He didn't seem to be able to control anything.
Yeah.
And when he's off, it's almost like the midfield doesn't operate at full capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And Klopp is an unbelievable motivator, and I don't think it's probably not a German hairdryer. It might be. It's probably a combination of different factors. But when we came out for the second half, he probably said look, we're not losing. We're back to square one.
Yeah. Just
go out you can't possibly be worse. I honestly think that Klopp has hacked into our signal group, and he's like, oh, look at this asshole Daz. Time to make him look like a ball bag again. Show him how little he actually knows, because I was baying for Naby Keita's blood. And I love Naby. I carry a lot of water for him, but he was abject. And he was abject in the first half against Real too. But this time Klopp decided to stay with him. And Sean's right. he was a completely different player in the second half.
I think he was arguably man of the match just on his second half performance. He was incredible in the second half.
Yeah.
But you're right. He was terrible in the first. It was weird.
I'm a little concerned about Jota. And this isn't necessarily a slight per se, but the ball doesn't stick very well with him in tight situations, and you see it happen repetitively. And I think now he realizes that he's kind of on the clock now that Diaz has proven to be such a diamond in the rough.
Yeah,
well, he's a polished diamond as far as we can probably tell at this point, and he seems to be trying to force things. It's not as natural. I think that you could say that long-term injury that he had when he came back, he was trying to fight for his place, but I just think that he's trying to force some stuff. And you were saying in the first half, Sean, that we were coughing up possession in the front three, and so it had a smaller ripple effect that everything that went forward was coming straight back to us. But we were making a lot of very fundamental errors. And my dad always said to me, is like, look, if things are going wrong, go back to basics. Make a 5-yard pass, move into space and get it back. Do something that kind of clicks you back into the rhythm and the repetitiveness of what you're good at or what you know that you're good at. Like, how many times did you watch balls get passed directly out of bounds?
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, it's at points we were just not making simple passes. Yeah.
Look, and credit to Villarreal. I'm not going to say that this we were just terrible. Villarreal, like to your point, Paul, they had a game plan and they executed it perfectly.
Yeah.
But I think they huffed and they puffed their way out of the second half, because they would put a tremendous amount of effort into closing us down in the first half, and it worked. Yeah. And you have to remember that they took 2 shots on goal and they both went in.
Yeah,
and that's. You don't get that all that often. So, and that probably rattled us a little bit too. But for a group of professionals that have been in pressure cooker situations, it was very un-Liverpool-like. Specifically, this group. We've been to 3 Champions League semifinals in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And won 2. Well, actually, what's that? We've won 3 of them now, right?
Yeah. They've all been nuts, though. By the way, there's always been a moment of craziness, whether it was away at Rome.
So you'd expect them to have a better handle on this, because this is, by and large, the same group that we had throughout the course of those three semifinals.
Yeah,
by and large, and it was. I wasn't. So Sean said, like, I kind of, and Haitham the same thing. I was like, at halftime, I was like, look, this is going to be a vastly different second half, because there's been numerous instances this season where we've had an iffy first half or a ropey first half, and you come back out the second half and maybe Peter Kravitz has got some magic on the iPad and like, yeah, do this and like put tab A in slot B and we're good to go. And it's made a big difference when we've come back out for the second half. And I called my dad and I was like, that was terrible. That was one of the worst halves I've seen us play in Europe, period.
Yeah. And
I said, it won't be like that in the second half.
But, even then, just one thing I'll push back on. Again, I watched this back knowing we'd won. So therefore I wasn't like freaking out about like, oh, they've got the ball. We could easily have scored like multiple times in that first half. Like Jota had a chance, Salah had a chance. So I think one of the things that I think they both snatched at their chances. Kind of believe it. I think they snatched at a lot of things in that first half, but it was not as So I think every one of them is going to probably say it's my worst performance of the season. But it wasn't like they couldn't have ended up 2-2 or something at halftime in that game, or even ahead, which may seem crazy, but honestly, the XG kind of bears some of that out. There was somebody also suggesting that the reason that the goalkeeper kind of lost it was because he got bumped on the head and he thought it was by Salah, but actually it was his own player. If you saw that,
yeah. They went after him like
but it was his own player who kneed him in the head.
One thing about Salah's not a dirty player. Like he's a lot of things, but he's not a dirty player.
Yeah,
I think they were referring to Karius from a few years ago.
Well, I'm sure I had shades of that. I think Gareth Roberts said something like this, like, "Oh, isn't it good to be the other team has the shit goalkeeper in lots of stages of the Champions League?" Great. Yeah. So Haitham, last word on I don't know if you saw any of the interviews, by the way, because Salah and Van Dijk apparently were interviewed extensively on, is it BT Sport? Were quite transparent about some of the things, more transparent than I think you might have imagined. Like they both talked about what happened at halftime. And
Yeah,
Salah said it was mostly calm, is what he said.
he said it was mostly calm until the end. There was a little bit of shouting, so and he was laughing about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the interviews. They both pretty much said the same thing. That club told them to play their way.
Yeah.
And they could not be playing any worse. But yeah, and I think Sean, you kind of alluded to it too in the chat, but he was talking about wanting to meet Madrid in the final.
Yeah.
Because he wanted revenge or whatever. I mean, he didn't. I think the interviewer is the one that basically told him for revenge, huh? And he was just cracking up. But then the other thing is, he said his goal is 40 goals for the season, and he has 30 now. So after that, the sitter that he missed in the second half, I'm just like, I don't want to watch many of those because now his focus is going to be scoring 10 goals in the next 6 matches or whatever.
Hat-trick inbound against Spurs.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, Van Dijk was asked the same question about who he wanted to play in the final, and then basically he was like, either or whatever. Just a politician answer. But yeah, I think the guys mentioned everything about the second half that I wanted to say. There's nothing to add. Yeah, the goalie was just out of this world. Whether he had a concussion or not, I don't think he had a concussion.
I think he had a concussion when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll tell you what, like I can just in my head, I just have like Mo Salah have those like his 80s montage going on now that it's Real Madrid. It's like he's running upstairs, changing clothes, cracking an egg into a beer.
Yeah.
Like he's got like his whole montage going on of like what's going to happen against the lead up to Real Madrid, the final against Real Madrid.
Yeah, with the Rocky soundtrack in the background.
Hearts on fire. That's all you're gonna get.
Well, the other part of that interview that was interesting is he basically said he didn't want to have to play Man City again. He said they're a pretty tough team.
But it's boring. We've played them 3 times this season.
I know.
I'm glad we're not playing them just because I feel like it would be so freaking stressful.
Yeah.
You don't want the option of losing to them in the Champions League final. Like you just never hear the end of it.
But also, I don't think it's going to be a tactician's delight game against Real. I think there's going to be blood and thunder in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I mean, they're not really that type of team, but I kind of think that well, we can get into it later, but
we will spend more time talking about the final in an episode after a lot of other stuff happens. But I feel like we should close this and spend on.
I have one more thing. Serge Aurier coming in, and then I'm like, why?
Oh well,
but it was fun. It was fun to watch. A lot of Premier League rejects.
They had so many Premier League rejects. Yeah, it was interesting how many they had.
Yeah,
Capu.
Can't believe we let Coquelin score. But anyway, I think so. Clearly, we're in the final, May 28th, in Paris. I messaged this on a load of feeds today. Last time Real Madrid lost a European Cup final was in Paris in 1981 against a team that plays in red that you may be very familiar with.
Kennedy, 82nd minute.
I think it was the 83rd. Yes, it was. I was in that end actually. With the end he scored in. It was Parc des Princes, and the end of the stadium. It's like a running track around it. He must have had to run another 50 yards to get to the Liverpool end.
But the final is not going to be in the Parc des Princes.
No, it's not. It's not. Stade de France. Yeah. But Paris, nevertheless. I'll be wearing my headscarf or a badge, Paris T-shirt when we do that episode.
Or you could wear that sweet Just Be Divock shirt that's Haitham is donning.
I was in selecting today's shirts. I was like, should I go with players or should I just go with European Cup winning associated shirts, which is what I decided in the end. Yes.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the season to end to wash my my lucky shirt because it hasn't
Shirt's
been
dirty
washed
now.
it is pretty dirty.
Yeah, I'm glad I never got into not having to. I do know people who do that, not having to wash the. Anyway, yes. So let's briefly touch on, and I'll start with you, Sean. I don't know how much you want to say about this because I won't even start with my perspective. I'll get that in at the end. But this was variously described. I saw it, like the Guardian writer Jonathan Liu described it as a 1-0 beating when we I thought really controlled the game. Like a lot of the other outlets were like a really nervy 1-0. Liverpool looked strained under pressure. I'll just share what I got the XG from a couple of different places, and it looked like it was 0.11 for Newcastle and 2.74 for us, which was actually wider than the margin in the game where we beat United 4-0. So, Sean, nervy 1-0, absolute masterclass.
It was only nervy in that, late in the match, we were only up 1-0, and you were sitting there thinking, we should be up 4 or 5, Yeah. It was just one of those where we weren't, we weren't hitting the target and kind of clicking in the final third when we needed to. But they created literally nothing. I mean, what was there actually, like 0.3 or something?
0.11. It was 0.11.
It
was less than United's.
They did absolutely nothing. I mean, they never threatened us, and we were in total control of the whole match. So I mean, it was nervy in that, anytime you're only up 1 goal, you're always a little worried that something fluky could happen, they bomb it over the top and you get a bad call for a penalty or something.
Yeah.
That's happened to us, a few times in the past. The Calvert-Lewin especially. Yeah.
Plays for a relegation threatened team.
What's that?
He plays for a relegation threatened team.
But he doesn't really play. That's the problem.
He models clothes for relegation.
Maybe they wouldn't be in relegation if he played. No, I mean, I was nervous about this game because it just seemed like a kind of trap game between 2 Champions Leagues. It's away at Newcastle. They were in good form, and we just totally controlled the match. I mean, they never really threatened us. So yeah, I mean, it seems like there's always this desire to create some kind of narrative where we just barely got away with it. It's like,
yeah,
no matter how much we dominate a match, they'll always point to that one time where they almost had an offside goal or something.
Oh yeah. They kept showing. I think for Newcastle, they kept showing the highlights were the offsides.
Yeah. I mean, they do that all the time, and it's no, that's part of how we.
It's on the season DVD.
So I don't want to spend too long in the Newcastle game, but I'll give everyone else a chance to just say a few words about it. I thought it was hilarious, actually, all of the kind of oh my God, this midfield we've picked. What are we doing here? Apparently it's the starting midfield for the Man United 5-0 away. I thought Keita was actually really, really good. And I'm loath to be as negative about his first half performance, given it felt like the whole team was out of sync against Villarreal. But I thought against Newcastle, not just because of the goal, I just thought generally his pressing was great. He created a couple of other opportunities that we should definitely have taken.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've said it all. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Over to you, Haitham.
I do just want to say real quick, I thought Milner was very good in this game, which surprised me. Mm-hmm. It's the first game he started in a while where I thought he was really good. He did everything we needed him to do.
Did he get man of the match? I think some outlets gave him the man of the match.
I think some people did give him man of the match. Yeah,
he was indeed.
But, it was a big bottle of prune juice. They didn't give him a trophy. They gave him a big bottle of prune juice.
The one that they kept replaying was the tackle where he got the ball clean and there was nothing close to a foul. And was it the defender kicked his leg?
Shaw,
but
yeah.
But it led to a goal. You know, so he kind of helped create that. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of a pleasant surprise. I thought I was a little nervy when I saw. Anytime I see Milner and Hendo in midfield, I'm thinking like, oh gosh, you know, are they going to be able to do the running? But it worked. They were exceptional in that game, both of them.
Dude, he's like 425 years old in dog years, and he still wins the bleep test every season.
Yeah.
Like running is not an issue for James Milner. The speed, perhaps, but running generally is not is his forte. And speaking Spanish to his kids, that's another forte.
And again,
that on his resume.
That midfield played against Watford, 5-0, and played against Man United, 5-0.
Yeah.
I did think the last game he played, he looked like he hadn't played in a while, but generally, I think against Premier League teams. I think it was.
You should give Keita some more praise about the way that he took the goal too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but because they kept going on about that stupid replay, and they ignored one of the most brilliant goals I've seen in a while. Just the calm he had.
But I think we also need to understand, like, we're not obligated to kick the ball out of play. There was 6 seconds. I timed it. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, and the ball was in the back of the net after that tackle.
Yeah.
3 passes, 6 seconds.
He kicked Milner. I mean, it was like.
See, Sean's doing it now. He's not focusing on the brilliance of the goal. He's focusing on what.
It was just the whole thing was so absurd. I'm like, why do you keep showing this replay that is clearly not a foul?
Yeah.
Like,
by the way, the one thing I would say is, I don't know if like the shot eventually that he hit. I mean, it reminded me a lot of the Jota one at Wolves where he hit the guy on the line, because I don't think he was aiming to put it between the two defenders.
No, he was not.
Threw it up just in his head.
Yeah. Boom. Yeah.
Yeah. The only comment, I mean, you guys have said it all, but the only thing I want to add was I got pretty peeved at the end. I think I might have mentioned it to you guys, where the commentators at the end of after the game was done, they were still referring to the possible foul, or Liverpool won, even though James Milner, had a disputed tackle or whatever. I'm just like, just let it go. I mean, you watch, Bart looked at it, you watch it on replay, you saw Sher, whatever his name is, kicking Milner, and Milner got the ball first. So why keep mentioning it? So that was pretty, I was just peeved, but it's commentators.
There were a few, actually. I saw people taking screenshots of the BBC feed, and like at one point it said Liverpool lead despite Almiron goal being disallowed. I'm like, yeah. So you remember this? This is what is it, like 2 yards offside?
They had two players offside, didn't they?
Well. Anyway, yes, there's a lot of dodgy coverage going on here. I'm sure
I think it's more larger inference to like the state of punditry. Like, look, it might get boring us talking about it, but it happens all the time. So you have to continually mention the fact that the narrative has to be, we're lucky, someone else was shit, we weren't great. Like, it can never just be like, this is the best Liverpool team that has, like, Paul, I think you were there when they founded the team, but this is the best team that I've ever seen in my 48 years. And like, and I've said this before, like, it's tough for me to say that because I watched the teams in the 80s that would just churn through stuff, but this team, and Tony Evans said the same thing today as well on a tweet. He's like, I'm not going to get nostalgic about it. He's like, this is the best Liverpool team that I've ever seen. The fact that we are this far into the season and we will play every single game that it was on our calendar that we potentially could play, we are going to play in.
Yeah.
We can win 4 trophies this season. We are well poised to do it. Like, this has never been done. This is the best Liverpool team that has ever been. So where are people now? It's like, oh, they shouldn't be talking about that. Yes, we fucking should.
Yeah.
We have we're in 2 finals. We're 4 games away from winning the Premier League. This is exactly when you fucking talk about it.
Right.
And everyone else should be too. Like you're just lazy punditry. Like, it's like, are you like, have someone in your earpiece? Like, look, you have to slaughter these guys a little bit. It's like on talk shite. It's all the time. It's like, dude, mate, you have a pair of eyes. Do you not see this? Like, I understand that you might have to try and create like a little bit of some shit post, but give us our due. This is a fucking amazing team. And I'm out of wine. God damn it.
I would say, well, feel free to reload, but I would say that it's much easier. It's much more popular on TalkSport to be negative about Liverpool than a lot of other teams because that gets traffic.
To be fair, though, I would say 90% of the pundits. I'm not talking about the commentators, like game commentators. I would say 90 to 95%, and I watch a lot of punditry on YouTube, live on TV. Most of them give us our dues, even ex rival players, they all do. And it's just, I feel like it's the commentators doing commentary on games, whether it's the color or the main ones or whatever. They're the ones that say shitty, iffy stuff like that. And then, like you said, the BBC has headlines that are just ridiculous at times.
Yeah.
But you're talking about ex-Reds that are talking shit. Rob Jones,
Jim
Benjamin, Carragher sometimes. Like, it's almost like they're said, like, look, whether or not they're told to do it or they're like, well, because we're ex-Liverpool players, we kind of have to tap into the whatever the zeitgeist around like talking shit about Liverpool. So we don't want to seem like we're too partisan. Like, fucking goddamn it, you played for this team. This is when you get partisan. Michael.
Yeah, I mean that topic in particular drives me nuts because players from other teams don't hold their bias back at all.
Yeah.
So
actually, it's interesting. Jamie Carragher, I know, has expressed a lot of unpopular opinions. I think it seems on UK television. Have you guys seen much of him on the Paramount
CBS?
Plus? Yeah. He's like full on.
Yeah, he is.
like it's at the end of today's game. He's like, like apparently he said earlier in the season, Real Madrid are never going to win a Champions League, and they should be showed this. And he's like, well, they're not, because Liverpool are going to win.
Well, no, here's the thing. Like, objectively, we are the best team in the world right now. I mean, whether we win or lose the final, whether we win or lose the league, we're the best team in the world right now. And there's not enough people that say that. There's just not. Like there's
a lot of people.
Barcelona team or like the Bayern team that won the treble. I mean, we odds on we probably won't win the treble, but we have a good shot at it.
Yeah.
And
what do you mean odds on? Get the fuck out of here. We'll join Michael in the timeout box.
But people don't talk about us that way, and they should.
I respectfully disagree with you, Sean. I have a lot of time on my hands, and I watch a lot of commentary and punditry, and a lot of people on TV give us our dues. In fact, it's either basically it's the best 2 teams are, and they start with Liverpool and then City, in that order all the time. So I've heard that a lot. There's your random shit head every now and then, but most of them just give us our dues.
I'm sorry, just because I'd really like to understand who are these people, because maybe you don't watch ESPN FC anymore.
No,
there's a bunch of people on the BBC.
BT Sports,
okay.
Pundits, Sky Sports pundits, ESPN FC. I mean, we know they have their biases, but for the most part, they say what I just said. And I pretty much watch ESPN FC every day. I know it's not advisable, but
unsubscribe.
But yeah, I mean, to me, I mean, and if they were I'll call bias or I call shithousery or just whatever. When I see it, I see the exact opposite most of the time. And maybe I'm just missing a lot of it, but I watch a lot of it at the same time.
My concession would be, I think in recent weeks, there've been a lot of people acknowledging that this team is really good. But I would say for a lot of the season, there were people trying to explain away how their claims that United or Chelsea were going to finish way ahead of us have gone awry, and that's played in, I think, to a lot of what they've said about Liverpool.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's pre-January basically. So, post, 2022 basically is when everything was swinging.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
all I see is a bunch of Homer Simpsons disappearing back into fucking hedges.
The high line, Salah dives, yeah, all that shit. I mean, that was still going on. Right?
Yeah, but one last comment, please, about Carragher saying that Liverpool is going to win. That's for me personally. That's another reason why I wasn't worried if City had won. I actually wanted to play them because I just feel, I know I'm taking you back a few weeks ago, but I just feel like based on the last half of the game at Al Ittihad and the FA Cup semi-final, I think we kind of have like I don't know, the edge basically. So I actually wanted to play them because I felt like if we had played them, if we were to play them, we were just gonna I don't know, quench the fire basically about City is the best team or whatever, because I believe and I know we're better than them. So I wasn't worried about them. I'm actually kind of worried about Real now.
Before we go, I think we should spare a thought for poor Raheem Sterling that left us to go and win a Champions League with City. That, yeah, you have to feel for the poor kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, the big mountain of money that they shoved his way, I'm sure.
Right. Well, I'm hoping that they're upset enough by this that it puts them off their game this weekend when they play Newcastle. He says pivoting to look forward before we're done. We have 6 games left. And then before we record, we'll have 2 league games and a cup final. And then we'll repeat that before the end of the season. So I'm going to ask each of you a different topic here. We've got Spurs, we've got Villa away, and then we've got Chelsea in the FA Cup final. And I'm not asking Sean about Chelsea. I'm going to ask him about Spurs. Everyone's been talking about how tricky this is, but it is an evening kickoff at Anfield, and all things being equal, I will be at that game. It feels like if the team needs a crowd, this is not a bad time to play the game. And there's 4 days after Villarreal. What are your thoughts about that one? I know we're not big fans of Kane, but Son is looking like he's playing as well as he ever has. What are your thoughts, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're a good team. I don't know how far back you have to go, but if you look at the form table of this calendar year or the last few months, Spurs are either 3rd or 4th in the league, and actually
below Newcastle.
Yeah, right. Newcastle up there too, and we just beat pretty comprehensively. So I'm probably not as worried about it now as I have been kind of in the lead up to this one. Just because I just have all the confidence in the world in this team to kind of get it done. It helps that we're at Anfield. If we were playing at their place, it might be a little trickier. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty confident about everyone we're playing, including Real Madrid in the final. I'm personally very happy we're playing them instead of City. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pick us to lose against anybody right now, the way we're playing.
So do we know who the referee is for the Spurs game?
No, but that is the one X factor always.
Because when you said I'm glad we're not playing there. I'm like, well, I'm glad we're not playing there with a referee that like Tierney, but
It's Michael Oliver. So actually,
okay.
What?
good.
This never happens.
I know. Yeah. They haven't announced the referee for the FA Cup final yet. That'll be a big one.
Yeah.
Gonna
Well,
be
you know,
Taylor. For sure.
I
For
think we
sure it's
were.
gonna be Anthony Taylor.
So I can't even remember who what the referee was, but it wasn't as bad as we feared. I know they disallowed Matip's goal, but I'm gonna quickly switch over to Daz. I'm gonna ask you to talk about Villa away. So that's the following Tuesday. So that's not much of a turnaround. Their form hasn't been great, has it? But
No.
they clearly. I mean, I don't know if I saw their first half against Spurs, and they looked like they should have battered them. They ended up losing 4-1, 4-0, I think. But so the camp had a good performance. But so what's your hopes, expectations about that one?
Well, I'm glad you brought up that game because I will go back to Spurs. Spurs are going to give us chances if we're on our game and our lads have their shooting boots on, we could put a few past Spurs.
Yeah,
because I watched the Brighton game too. It was the same thing. It was Leicester. It was Leicester. Leicester had by far and away the better possession. They looked more dangerous, and they coughed up one, and then they just fell apart.
Yeah.
But Villa, I fully expect Stevie G to start himself in goal against us, and because he's not going to see. It's going to be bittersweet for him though, and in all fairness and reality, but I don't think they're not good. They're not good right now. They're not in a rich vein of form.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of games when Coutinho first got there, and it was nice to see him. It was kind of refreshed. They look like refreshed, but they've kind of reverted to type, and I'm with Sean. I'm cautiously optimistic because it's any dog in its day and any team in its day. But I don't think there's too many teams out there that if we're at it and we're on it, and even if we're not, we can readjust at halftime. It's got that 1920 feel to it, like where we're juggernaut-esque.
Yeah,
for lack of a better way of putting it. Like we're so our bench is so deep. These guys all have minutes in their legs. They all seem to be pulling in the same direction. There's no passengers. Like the fact that no one has mentioned Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in the last 4 or 5 weeks. It's almost like he's not even there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Harvey Elliott. Harvey Elliott's from this too. Yeah.
I think that was probably by design.
Mm-hmm.
You'll probably see him feature more prominently next season. But like who out there wants to play us right now?
I totally agree with you, Daz. I didn't want to jump in real quick. I think the narrative around the Villa form is a little off. If you look at who they've played, I think they've been unfortunate in a few of those games, and they've played some really tough teams over the most recent stretch. They're not world beaters, but I don't think they're as bad as their recent form.
Tougher teams than Liverpool right now?
No. I'm not, and I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm not taking, I'm not worried about that game, but they lost to Wolves. They probably should have drew or won. Similar with Hammers, they should have beaten Leicester. I mean, they've been kind of unlucky in a lot of these games recently, and those are all good teams,
But that can also impact the way that impact your future form. It's like dropping points in games that you know that you should win.
Yeah.
That can be sapping.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave and you guys can chime in on this, but so obviously we've got another FA Cup final against Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea don't look in any great shape based on their recent form. What they beat at Everton, and they struggled. Well, I don't know. They dominated possession against United, but somehow failed to beat them. Are they just so? How should we look at this one? How are you looking at this one, Haitham? Are we going to play a lesser team than we faced in the Carabao Cup final? Or do you expect them to kind of come back on strong and it to be close like most of our games have been with them this season?
Chelsea's form is just as baffling as Real's ability to come back and Champions League matches or fixtures or whatever. So I don't get it. On paper, if you just look at their form for the past however many weeks or whatever, they should be just easy. I still believe. First of all, I don't think this match is going to go to penalties. I think there's going to be a winner in the 90 minutes. I think it's going to be us. And my only evidence for that or to back that up is the fact that they lost to Everton. So I don't care, who you are. I don't care, if you don't have lunch money or whatever.
Staying at the Hilton.
Yeah, exactly. The players that you have, you should be, just. I mean, you technically should be the third best team in the Premier League, and they're not playing like it. So I think I think I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I don't think it's going to be as close as the League Cup, for example, or when we played them in the league.
I hope you're right, but their league form looks like it's descending into what happened at the end of last season, where they ended up being fortunate to end up in fourth place.
Fourth place, yeah.
That's my worry. It's like that this is all they have to play for.
Yeah.
So like I think they're going to be up for this match, unfortunately. And they are a good team, as much as I hate them.
Well, so we won't even go to the so there've been a couple of articles this week by the Athletic Chelsea journalists about how they should be worried about losing people because of the uncertainty. People like apparently Mount and James aren't paid very much money, and they're like, why would I stay here, paid this minimal amount, and be uncertain about my future? And all these Chelsea fans were like, I'm cancelling my subscription. You're talking bollocks. There's no truth in this story. And lo and behold, yesterday in The Guardian, there's a story about how both James and Mount's agents have made it known that they would like some clarification on their future from the new owners.
There have been some rumors about Pep's interest in Reece James.
Yeah.
So
I think the thing said was 3 major English teams are interested in Mount. Well, clearly that's not us because we don't do dickheads. But so
I could see he's a Man United type player.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
He's their best player this season.
He's a good player. He's a Man United type player.
I mean, if you look at all the offensive stats, he's number one for them this season.
The delusional piece is because he's been at the academy since he was 6, he would never leave us.
That's the same thing with Reece James. They all think he'll never leave because he's been at Cobham or whatever.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, they're definitely losing Christensen, Azpilicueta, and Rudiger this summer for nothing. They're not getting anything for any of those or free transfers.
Yeah,
and I don't know how they're going to replace them. But
most pundits that I've seen talking about this stuff, apart from like really, I think people are really good, like Rory Smith, Jonathan Wilson from The Guardian, aren't talking about the fact that they've got a 1.5 billion shortfall in the 10-year spend projections, thanks to Abramovich not being available. Anyway, sorry, we digressed.
They do have a great academy, though. I could see them staying afloat for a few years. But
The Athletic had an article about how the academy's not as good as it once was.
Oh, I think they will fall off for sure, but it'll take a couple of years.
I think they need to cash in on a few loan players until they get their act together, which may not happen. So final word for you, Daz. FA Cup final. We haven't been in one for 10 years. Hey.
I fancy our chances. I'll kind of piggyback on what Sean's saying, if I may. Sean, climb up on your back here. This is pretty much all they have left. They've played us very close in all the other fixtures, but again, they just look like they're hurt. If the same squad shows up against us that played against Everton, there's a good chance they're going to get thumped. And actually, I'd actually ask the FA if we could move the fixture to Stamford Bridge, because they've been shipping a shitload of goals at Stamford Bridge. Home field advantage, my arse. But I do fancy our chances. I think I said that in our chat. there's been a lot of factors that have gone into like how well we're doing at the end of the season. Like we're dealing with adversity really well, and that's one thing that I think that hasn't been highlighted as much, is the fact that we have Villarreal. There's a perfect example. Playing City looking like absolute dog biscuits in the first half of the fixture at the Etihad, and then coming back in the second half and completely turning it around. The way that and then a week later when we went to Wembley, we battered them. And whether or not it was their quote unquote like first choice 11, it doesn't matter. We embarrassed them in the first like 60, 70 minutes of that game. They barely kicked the ball. Well, I'm probably, again, the wine is speaking probably, but I remember it being like a pretty great performance against the best team in Europe. And it's the only people that beat us right now are us. And I just don't see it. Like all evidence points to the fact that we're just a team that's incredibly in form. We're going to be, it's going to be really, really tough to break us down no matter who we put out on that pitch.
Yeah.
And I'm with Haitham. I think because I'm big into piggybacking right now, I think it'll be finished within 90.
So I'm thinking with what total of 6 games left, no question about that now. It becomes easier and easier to like really be focused on the big game in front of you. So I hope you're right. So we're going to close it now. We will be back in 10 days after the FA Cup final. Hopefully we'll be talking about 3 wins, and maybe City will wobble a little after their unfortunate experience in Madrid tonight. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Haitham. Thanks, Daz. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend. Follow us on Twitter. We only tweet and retweet from sources we think are credible. Thank you all.